Hi, everybody. Welcome into Pass the Mic. I'm Peggy Kusinski. This is a show that spotlights the accomplishments, the paths, the successes, and sometimes the struggles of women in sports and sports media. I am the host of season 2 of Pass the Mic, and I'm super excited to do this year. If you're a fan of the show, hey, let us know by giving us the thumbs up on your YouTube page. And don't forget to subscribe and follow us. We have last season's episodes available with John Buffone and Alyssa Barbieri on the Barroom Network. Great conversations about women in sports and sports media that I think you might want to binge, especially as it gets colder out these winter months here in the Midwest. Pass the Mic was created with a very simple yet important goal in mind, and that was to feature women in sports and sports media, highlighting their struggles along with their success. Through open and honest discussion, we hope that we can impact many women and men in and out of sports. Now, our guests come from all over, not just Chicago, but nationwide, and sometimes all over the world too. From veterans in their industry to newbies just getting started. Everyone seems to have a story. All right, so this week, our guest is a woman who has broken barriers in a variety of ways while pursuing her love of sports. Probably, I don't know, this might be like the highest level that you can actually get without actually stepping on the court as an athlete. At least in my opinion, it is. Let's welcome in Dr. Kathy Weber. Now, hang on, because when I tell you everywhere that she works, it's going to be crazy. So Kathy Weber, Rush University Medical Center, Midwest Orthopedics at Rush, Director of Primary Care Sports Medicine and Women's Sports Medicine, team physician, get this, Chicago Bulls, Chicago White Sox, Chicago Force, DePaul University, and Malcolm X. And yes, she is the company physician for Hubbard Street and River North Dance Companies. Dr. Kathy Weber joins us now on Pass the Mic. Hi, Kath. How are you?
I'm good, Peggy. How are you?
I'm awesome. So what we like to do on this show is highlight women who are in jobs and in careers in sports that people may not have really realized. So when I tell people that, oh yeah, my friend is a team doctor for the White Sox and the Bulls, they're like, oh, what's his name? I'm like, it would be Kathy Weber. So take us back to, like, when you first got into medicine, did you always know this is what you wanted to do? You wanted to be, a team physician. You wanted to work with sports teams. Take me back a little bit to what your goals were.
Well, I think when I first got into medicine, I just wanted to pass and get my medical license. But I think that sports has always been a part of who I've been, and so it was once I'd made the decision on where I wanted to specialize, it became pretty easy that I wanted to be involved in sports at some level, not just me playing basketball on the court or doing some running or whatever I would like to do. But I really kind of wanted to just give back, and also I think really help, I guess, help professional athletes at all levels, being male or female, to try to really give them the best health and service that I could give them. So it was, for me, it was I guess it was a natural transition. I remember when I started in practice, I was the only woman, and the first few weeks I had a few patients, and I thought, oh God, they're going to fire me. I'm not keeping up with the guys, and I right away And so I had the opportunity to run into the owner of the WNBA. Well, I guess they weren't a WNBA team. They were an offshoot of the WNBA that was here in Chicago. And they asked me to be their team doctor. And I still remember calling the director of sports medicine at Midwest Orthopedics saying, he was in the OR. I said, "Hey, I got this team." I was so excited. And it kind of blossomed from there. I really enjoyed being on the court and actually helping the athletes. And I just kept them going from there.
What's your own athletic background? Were you an athlete? Do I remember correctly? Are you a runner?
So I played basketball and volleyball, and then after
Wait, you
college,
played basketball. You're a little shorter than I am.
hey, I was fast. I was the defensive player of probably of all times. When you're short, you have to make it up with speed.
Exactly. You played basketball. What else?
Volleyball, and then in college I ran track and field, and then after college I continued to pursue my running career.
Wow. So when you got to, how did you get to Chicago even? You're not from Chicago, are you?
No, I came here for school. So when you apply for medical school, etc., you apply and you get. Fortunately, I was I guess good enough. I don't know how you want to say it, to
Yes.
have a number of offers, and I chose to come to Rush Medical College because I just thought it was a great program. I really felt at home there, and so came to Chicago to pursue my further education.
So when you were growing up, what were the teams you followed? Who were your favorite teams?
So my dad grew up in Chicago, so I had to be a Chicago fan. So I watched the Chicago Bears with my dad, and I just still remember my dad saying, "Oh, I can't watch this week." I'd say, "Why?" And he goes, "Because every time I watch, they lose."
Oh God.
I said, "Dad, you got to be a fan. They're going to win and they're going to lose. You got to stick with them." I watched the Blackhawks, so it was really more football and the Blackhawks at that time.
Wow. So was it a realistic goal for you, or were you just like, did you just kind of fall into this situation where you had a great opportunity where you were going to join Midwest Orthopedics, where they were going to be working with Chicago professional sports teams?
So when I first joined the practice, we didn't have the professional sports teams. So it was a few years after I joined that the White Sox approached us to take over coverage. And then after, I want to think, a successful year, then the Chicago Bulls asked us to take over as their team doctors as well.
So there has to be a point though, Kathy, where you kind of like go home and you pinch yourself and you're like, oh my gosh, like I am working with these professional sports teams that, people just admire. And I know, because I worked with them too in a different capacity as a member of the media, that you don't get caught up in their celebrity and who they are. But at some point you have to kind of step back. Did you ever have that moment where you stepped back and you were like, oh my gosh, are they gonna call me out here? Am I gonna get caught?
It's interesting. I think probably the time it comes home to me is when the kids are excited. I have to say though, they're at the age that Benny is still their person. That's who they go to the game to see, is Benny.
Benny the Bull?
Yes. I mean, they've been in the locker room with me, and the players come up and, the kids are tall and they're young and they're like, "Oh, we're going to teach you how to play basketball." And they're like, "Okay."
Yeah.
But really it's all about Benny still. And Benny does a great job every time they come, making sure that they feel welcome. So, but I think the kids kind of bring it home because, their friends are like, "Oh, your mom's the team doctor." But, for me, to be a team doctor, you have to you're a fan obviously you want your team to win, but the reality is you have to separate that out because you
Mhm.
have to be professional and you have to make decisions that are really the best for the players. And, I think that's for me, I'm their doctor. Yes, is it cool to take care of these guys? It is. But at the end of the day, their athletes are my patients.
So, can I ask you what the most intense moment you've had as a team doctor? There's, a lot of injuries that they can be scary, but I know you guys keep your cool and um, you do what you have to do. But everyone in the stands is like holding their faces and going, "Oh my gosh, what's going on?" Can you share with us any instances where um, your adrenaline was actually really rushing?
So there's been two specific events that have happened that you know are clearly very anxiety provoking. One was with Eddie Curry and
Oh,
trying to work through that whole situation. And then more recent with Danny Farquhar when
oh
he had that
gosh.
brain aneurysm. So, I mean, those are pretty intense moments that you're trying to deal with and making sure that you're moving things forward appropriately. Um,
Can
you
you
know,
take us back to like for our viewers who don't remember when Eddie Curry was playing with the Bulls, what happened?
so Eddie, in short, had an issue with his heart, and the um, concern was that if he continued to play, would he potentially have a fatal arrhythmia and potentially die? And so he was hospitalized for a period of time. We ran a lot of tests on him, and fortunately for him, he was able to continue to play. He ended up leaving the Bulls and going to the New York Knicks at that time. Um, so it was really kind of that event that you learn about and early, and it was pretty early in my career, where I remember getting on national TV and talking about the situation. I
Mm,
remember showing up at the Bulls headquarters up in Northbrook, and there was towers of TV towers everywhere.
mhm.
So I mean, it was pretty stressful, and just trying to help him and guide him, um, and making sure that the right message was being told, because it was about his career, and
Yeah.
so making sure that information that he chose to share was really appropriate information that wouldn't potentially hurt his career down the line.
You get into this and you think you're going to deal with ankle injuries, a twist ankle, maybe some torn ligaments, and you're going to have an ACL here and there. But um, these are life-threatening instances, and Danny Farquhar's was far more scary for people who remember with the White Sox. Can you take us back to what happened with him?
Sure. So it was a relief pitcher for our team, and he had pitched. I can't remember, maybe the seventh inning. He came off the field and had an episode and essentially collapsed in the dugout. And he was transferred very rapidly to the Rush University Medical Center. And I think back to that. If he hadn't been in that dugout and had been at home, he probably would have died.
Mm.
So he was taken to the hospital, and very quickly, we got neurosurgery involved, and fortunately, he survived. But with an aneurysm, it's not just the moment or the few days post aneurysm. There's risk of vasospasms and things that can still happen, days after the event. And so it was pretty touch and go and stressful. And fortunately, he had great support from his family and from the team, and from the Major League Baseball fans. I mean, there was a lot of support for him, and he did well. He really won the lottery ticket because he survived that, and
Amazing.
and it's normal, you know.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So where are, like, give me an idea where the team doctors are during a game. Are you on the bench? Are you in the locker room? And then they call, like, we always know in a football game that the team doctors are on the side. And I would say, as a member of the media, what I learned to do is to see which doctor went out onto the field. So if it was, the internist, okay. If it was the orthopedist, then I'm like, okay, wait, there's something structural that they're concerned about. So where are you at during the game, like for Bulls and for White Sox?
So pre-COVID or with COVID?
Has that
Yeah,
changed?
it makes a difference, yeah. So, pre-COVID for the White Sox, I have seats that are behind our dugout, maybe a few rows up. So, I mean, if something emergent or urgent happened, I could potentially go over the dugout if I had to.
Yeah.
But I'm not limited to where I need to be. I could go up to the press box if I wanted to, or a suite. I have a walkie-talkie, and so they can get a hold of me at any time during the game. I try to be pretty aware and watch because a lot of times for us, mechanism of injury is really gives us a clue on what the injury is when we just see it. Um, Post COVID, I stayed basically in the training room. They have a little doctor's area that we can sit in. So it varied. I could have gone in the stands as the stands opened up, but I just felt, with two kids not vaccinated and, the risk of bringing something home, I didn't feel comfortable sitting out in the stands without, with all the people unmasked. So I pretty much spent all my games in the locker room. Um,
Wow.
for the Bulls, again, pre-COVID, we could sit out in the stands, and our seats are right behind the team home team
Yeah.
basket. So literally, if there's an issue, we can walk right out onto the court, or I can be in the training room. It depends. Sometimes I'm in the other team's training room if there's an issue going on with the other team. And then post COVID, for the longest time, we had an empty stadium, which was really, it was kind of eerie. You seem like you were at a practice instead of a true game. But
Yeah.
there were times I sat out in the stadium solo. And more recently with the fans, again, I've chosen to stay in the training room, which was where all the action is anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So that brings me the training room. Describe this room to me, because as a member of the media, the training room was the escape room for a lot of the athletes. Like they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I know I need to go get treatment. I need to go like," but we were like, we'd look in there and every now and then, like back in the day, I'm not saying they still do it now, but back in the day, they'd be drinking their beers in the training room. And that was, I don't know that they were getting a lot of treatment back then, but describe to me the training room.
Well, it's a training room. So there
Is it
are
still the escape room?
no, no, I don't think so anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, when we first started with the Bulls, yeah, I mean, after a game, there may be a glass of wine or a couple
Yeah.
beers or so. That's kind of in the past. And I probably, COVID changed a lot of things too, right? So
Yeah.
there's restrictions on a lot of things. Um, but it's a treatment area. Yeah, like during the game, sometimes if an athlete's been injured, the PT will be working on them in the training room. So they'll be actually getting some treatment during the game. Halftime or before games, ankles are being taped and, kind of warming up or doing some things that they need to do to stretch out so that they can be ready for the game. And then after the game, same thing kind of happens. Somebody has an issue, we might be evaluating them. We have ability to do X-ray right there in the training area. So if somebody injures something, we take an X-ray right away. So believe it or not, it is a training room now.
Well, you know what? It's crazy when you say that you have the ability to do X-ray, because I remember when I started first in my career as a reporter, there was no mobile X-ray units available, and NFL now they put the drapery down and they can test for concussion or do whatever they need to do. How much has it changed from when you started to now with the just the what you have available to you at the access during a game?
So it's digital now. So our X-rays are digital. So it's, I'm sure back in the old day they had to probably, print the films themselves.
Yeah.
But so everything's digital, so it's pretty quick. And the equipment is state of the art. So, we can get X-rays really rapidly in correct positions. I think that some of the equipment that the trainers are using are different than they did in the past. But I think in general, there's probably very similar things that we have access to. You know, we have access to look at eyes. I mean, if somebody scratches an eye, we can sometimes we are suturing things in the training room very rapidly. All those things I think have been available for a long time. So I think it's probably different techniques of treatment. And I don't know. I know when we first started with the White Sox, they had a fluoro machine instead of a regular X-ray, and I think some of the other facilities will have a fluoro, which is just a simple, quick X-ray. But now we have high technology, and we can transfer X-rays to our office if we need to. And if we needed to, we could have somebody else take a look at. We can transfer it, so there can be, I think, more rapid communication between professional other physicians.
So, I had mentioned when I introduced you that you were also the director of the women's sports medicine with Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. And so I'm curious, as a woman, what obstacles you had to overcome in your career?
Well, I think one, I entered it into a field that is primarily male dominated. And so, I think I had to prove myself. I had to work harder. I could never say no. I always said yes. I didn't really want them to think of me as a woman. I wanted to think of me as a professional and a physician that they could count on, and that, I brought expertise to the group that they didn't have. So I think that, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I just was breaking into a field that was, more male dominant.
Mm.
I think that, I worked hard. I showed that I could do it. And, I've always thought of myself as just a hard worker. And, I think I offer a lot to my patients and to my other colleagues. And so I kind of approached it in that way. I mean, yes, it was, I guess, an obstacle, but I kind of didn't think of it as an obstacle. I thought, if you're good and you prove it, people will accept you for what you're bringing to the field or to the court or to the office.
It's so funny because I used to think the same thing. I was always like, well, gosh, I didn't really look at it as being an obstacle. I mean, were they tough? Yeah. Did we have to work hard? Yeah. I always felt like it's a common refrain that women in a male dominated industry tend to work harder because they feel like they have to prove themselves, and you can't make a mistake. I'm curious how the athletes and the coaches and management accepted you. Was there a change from the beginning of your career to now?
Yes.
How so?
Well, in baseball, very traditional male, right? Everything's male. And I I remember I was told that I would need to come into the back entry to the training room if I was going to go see another team, by somebody who had been in the business for a very long time. And, I was a girl, right? So I should come through the back of the training room. So I shouldn't go through the locker room. And I'm thinking, I'm a doctor, I see everything,
Yeah.
it's nothing new to me. But that was kind of an interesting, I think, experience. I also remember when we were in the World Series, I traveled with the team. Yep. I traveled with the team, and I remember trying to get into the locker room, and, security would be like, no way, you're a woman, no. And I'd be like, look, I'm their team doctor. And they're like, no, you can't go in. And I'd like stick it in their face, my badge. And they're like, oh. So some of the, common, things that I guess obstacles that we'd have to work through. And in general, I think players didn't really have an issue with it. Ozzy was the manager when I was there, and I mean, he was just a hoot. He's like, Kathy tells you to do something, you better do it. If she tells me you didn't, you're going to be in trouble. So
Yeah.
he's really supportive of me coming on. I had one player for the Bulls who was pretty well known and very well respected. And I was doing his entry physical, and he goes, how long have you been the team doctor? And at that time, I don't know, maybe 10 years. I don't know what it was. And I told him, and he goes, oh. And I said, why do you ask? And he goes, well, I've never had a female team doctor before. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, you got an issue with it? He goes, no, not really. And I go, okay, I'm good. You're good. He's good. And, that was kind of, but it was kind of the first time anybody had ever said
Yes.
that. But I also think that being a female, I think sometimes the players tell me things that they might not tell the guys, because
Yeah.
I think they don't want to be looked as they're
Weak.
whining, right?
Yes.
So I think I think that there's an advantage to being a female as a team physician.
Wow, that's really awesome. All right, let's get to some fun questions before we wrap it up. Your favorite athlete that you have treated? I know. Now we're
This could
looking
get
at.
me in trouble.
No, it won't get you in trouble. No, they understand. You have the Bulls, you have the White Sox, you have
Yeah,
DePaul, you have Malcolm X, you have
yeah.
Hubbard Street Dancers.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, come on, Kath. Who's your favorite?
Well, I would say I have a number of favorites, but I
Okay.
would have to say Joakim Noah
Oh,
was one
we
of my
love
favorite
him.
players ever.
Yeah,
He played with heart. It's like he never lost his college rah-rah. And it was just refreshing that, I remember when he was in a boot for a reason, and he had Red Sox on. He was just, he just never gave up that kind of the love of the game, and he played because he loved the game. It wasn't
yeah.
about money to him. It was just about being a really good guy.
Favorite White Sox?
See, again, you're going to get me in trouble. Um,
You've had a lot of really, I mean, you've been through the good years with the White Sox.
I have. Um, I'd probably say Mark Burley's one of my favorites.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Just a good old boy down home.
Yeah, it was just he was what, what you saw is what he was.
Yeah.
He really enjoyed playing for the White Sox, and I think it was hard for him when he got traded, but I think, it's a game. He understood that. But just a really solid guy, I mean, obviously an outstanding athlete, achieved a lot for the White Sox, but just a good guy.
I have to ask you about the Hubbard Street Dance because I think that it gets overlooked that you work with them. And these dancers are athletes in every sense of the word. Give me an idea when people say, oh, they're dancers, they're not athletes. Give me an idea of the kind of stress that they put on their bodies.
So I always tell my dancers that I think they're the best athletes that there are, that are around, because, if you're a 350-pound lineman, you're basically just pushing mass, right? Dancers, the ability that they do to generate jumping and twisting, and they do it with such grace. And I mean, it's just a beautiful an art. But to do the things that they do requires extreme amount of strength, agility, timing. They're being lifted up in the air by other people and coming down. And I mean, it's just, to me, I think they're some of the best athletes that there are. And the other thing is they keep coming back.
Mm,
They can get hurt and they keep wanting to dance. They know that there's somebody on the sideline that wants to take their position. And
it's
so
hard.
they try not to have surgeries. They really do a lot of PT. They're very body aware. And so I think for dancers, it's just a beautiful art. And the ability that they do and how athletic they are is just amazing to me.
How in the heck do you do all this? Working for all these teams, you still call on patients at Midwest Orthopedics. You
Mhm.
are with the White Sox, the Bulls, DePaul, Malcolm X, Hubbard Street Dance. Women are like, how do you do this? Has it been, at a cost? I mean, it's you can't possibly have a lot of free time.
So, I mean, it's true. I think I'm a good time manager. I have very good staff around me, which helps quite a bit.
Super
I have great
smart.
colleagues, so if there's an issue, I can call upon them at any time or day. Rush University Medical Center has been outstanding. If there's an issue, I can pretty much get the athletes in as quickly as I need to. So I have a lot of support. But yeah, it is at a cost. My kids are growing up and, especially with COVID, they haven't been able to come to games. So in the past, they might come for half a game and then they'd go home. But they haven't been able to. And with COVID, I've had to cover more games because of the limitations of staff and wanting, you know, them to have less people in and out of the training room. And so the demand has been higher. So I would say COVID is in itself has put a lot of stress on us as physicians, but it's also, from my standpoint, taken even more of my not so much free time away. But I love what I do. I feel very honored and privileged to be able to do what I do. Um, and I think to myself, if I had to give something up, what would I give up? I don't know. Because I still really love it all. I feel like I have the best job in the world. I see patients during the day. I see other patients that are getting paid a lot more money than a lot of my
Yeah.
patients during the day. But the reality is they're all patients, and everybody needs good care. So, I enjoy my office hours. I enjoy my patients. I love seeing, one patient, then I see their kids, then I see their grandparents. And so I just feel like I have been blessed in the role as a physician.
Do you I had my shoulder surgery done at Midwest Orthopedics, and I remember thinking to myself, um, the surgeon who did my surgery did the same surgery on, at the time, a White Sox player, pitcher who was making millions of dollars. And I remember thinking, wow, that player is probably so much more important to him than I am. But I never felt that way. I felt like, you guys just don't, put a dollar sign now. That's a lot of pressure. You've got these professional athletes who are worth millions of dollars to their franchises, to their organizations, and then you have like nobodies like us that come in off the street. But how do you not let that get to you and change you?
Well, I mean, I think that, you're a physician because you're trying to do the best for everyone. Um, you know, I, I don't really distinguish the two. Obviously the pressure is a lot harder on or higher on me if, there's the professional athlete has a bad outcome, right?
Yeah.
Because they got to blame somebody.
Yeah.
But the reality is that, I try to treat everybody like they were a family member. It can be the professional athlete or it can be, the 80-year-old with knee arthritis. Everybody needs care. And I think that, we pride ourselves at Midwest Orthopedics at Rush on, being one of the top orthopedic groups in the country. And we want to provide, state of the art treatment and care for our patients. And so I think, yeah, you could, maybe it's a little bit tougher when it comes to, a high level professional athlete, but I think the end game is to try to do the best care you can for everybody.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you. I did not ask you, where did you get your education?
So I went to school down in Cincinnati at Mount St. Joe University, and then I actually have a master's degree in exercise physiology from George Williams, and then I went to Rush Medical College. So I got my medical degree from there, and then I did some training at Rush, and then I was out at UCSD in California for my sports medicine training.
Wow. All right. Last question, Kathy. What's your message to young women that maybe never thought about sports medicine? And now they watch this interview with you and they think, wow, is this something that's possible for me?
So I think that the most important thing is always dream, have goals, and don't let anybody say you can't do it. I mean, you can do it, I mean, there's a lot of obstacles that you'll come no matter what profession you get into, but those obstacles can be overcome. And I think if you really have the desire to be a physician or be a team doctor or be a sports medicine doctor, you know, network with people, talk with people. I have sometimes, high school and college kids come and spend a day with me in clinic just so they can see what's going on and what it's all about. But I think, dream big and don't let anybody say, no, you can't do it, because you can.
You have been very generous, as always, with young women, whether it was with Girls in the Game, like you said, high school and college students that get to shadow you for a day. And I tip my hat to you, because you're a great role model for young women. So folks, when you see Dr. Kathy Weber on the sidelines, whether it's at a Bulls game or a White Sox game or a DePaul game or Malcolm X College, give her a wave and thank her, because you're a great role model for young women. And Kathy, we want to thank you for joining us here on Pass the Mic.
Well, I appreciate you having it. And I'm going to say back at you, Peggy.
Hey, I get it. We'll be right back with Drop the Mic. Thank you to Dr. Kathy Weber, and we'll be right back. Now to the mic drop. And that's when we look back at what we just heard from Dr. Kathy Weber, and an incredible, interesting woman who really was given an opportunity and ran with it. I love hearing the stories about how she really, as a physician, you take that physician's oath and you really are just wanting to help people. And whether you are someone off the street that she sees during her office days, or you are a multi-million dollar athlete who needs to get back on the basketball court, or needs to pitch next week for the White Sox, or else the team is put in jeopardy in the win-loss column, then that's a lot of stress that can be put on you. And the way that she handles it is amazing. I know for a fact that the athletes love her. She's great. She's got a great sense of humor. She's super laid back. She's really smart and really good at what she does. Her stories about Eddie Curry with the Chicago Bulls and his heart incident, and Danny Farquhar with the Chicago White Sox and his aneurysm, is really scary. And at the same time, you look at the role of a team physician and you think, wow, is that really what they signed up for? Maybe not. Everyone thinks it's such a cush job, but anything can happen. Really cool, really amazing. She is such a huge supporter of women and supporting girls that I love everything that she stands for. So my thanks to Dr. Kathy Weber for joining us on this episode of Pass the Mic. Now, if you liked this episode, please click that thumbs up and go back and binge some of our earlier episodes too. Don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter at Peggy Kusinski or on Facebook, Peggy Kusinski NBC Chicago. And yes, on Instagram as well at NBC Peggy. This isn't the only show that I host. There's also our podcast, Chicago's Sportscaster and Her Son, which I do with my son, Jason. It's also here on YouTube, on the Barroom Network, on Podbean, and wherever you might get your audio podcasts as well. Check it out. Don't forget to subscribe to us as well. Subscribe to both shows. I mean, seriously, why not? I want to thank Dr. Kathy Weber for joining us. She's a dear friend, Midwest Orthopedics at Rush University Hospital, team doctor for the Chicago Bulls, the Chicago White Sox, Malcolm X College, DePaul University, and Hubbard Street Dance. And thanks to my producer as well, Aldo Gandia, for making me always look so good, and this show looks better than it really should. We want to thank you all for watching as always, and we will see you next time on Pass the Mic. So long, everybody.